Welcome to the Save Par Golf Podcast, where two average golfers talk about golf and things. I'm your host, Eric.
I'm Dominic.
We are currently on episode 97, and we have a very special guest today. We have Al with 3DP Design. Al is a putter designer. He's also pioneering the 3D printed golf clubs. If you don't follow him on Instagram, make sure to hit that follow button. The Instagram handle is at 3DP_design. Al, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me. Really happy to be here.
So before we get too far in, Derek's like, I'm gonna butcher the hell out of this intro because 3DP is like hard for him to say, like back to back to back.
Which is funny because my initials are DDP.
Oh,
But
so
it's
close.
like
What's your middle name?
Dean.
I thought it was Dante.
No, nope, Dean. But I was just like, it's kind of a tongue twister for me. So it's like I'm used to DP, but I like the name though. It's fantastic. And with that being said, can you kind of tell us how you got the name and when you
So,
started
I mean,
3DP Design?
yeah, I mean, it all spins from 3D printing. This isn't my first putter company. I started with a company called Round Four, doing milled putters years ago, and it kind of never really got anywhere. I'd started up milling putters, and right as I was getting going, a friend of mine called me up and said, "Hey, I've got funding for this company. You got to come join me." And so I put it on the back burner and went off and did a startup for a couple of years. And while I was doing that startup, I discovered 3D printing in steel. And I was like, oh my God, I could only imagine the cool putters I could make with 3D printing in steel. And so when I left that startup, I went back to putter making, and it was like, all right, it's time to go all in on 3D printing. When I joined up with National Custom Works, I decided to have a separate sort of sub brand with its own logo mark and its own sort of theme. And the whole idea was always around 3D printing. I mean, the whole concept was to make a better putter using modern technology, specifically 3D printing. And so that was just the total focus of the brand and the concept. It's just design completely focused around utilizing 3D printing to make a better putter.
Was the 3D like the startup that you were working with before, was it golf related or was it just something totally different?
No, yeah, it was Arcos Golf. Are you familiar with Arcos?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I spent about 2 years working there. I helped design and launch the product. I was the
Cool.
VP of product strategy and customer experience.
Very cool.
Yeah,
And you mentioned
that was a really fun gig, particularly before we launched the product. Like designing a new product like that and testing it and going out and proving it. I mean, I was playing like 200 rounds of golf a year. Like it was nuts.
wow.
Just going out and testing and improving and testing and improving and refining the product. Once we had customers, then it was not as much fun. But because you got people, if the product doesn't work right, then clients get mad, and you have to kind of fix their happiness levels and fix the product to make it better. But yeah, that was a fun 2 years of life, and the startup experience was really fun too. I mean, it was a traditional like VC-backed startup with a ping pong table and a kegerator in the office, and aside from the really tech guys, like the programmers, everyone was a golfer. And in fact, we tried to make the programmers be golfers too. We mandated that they would play 9 holes of golf a week just so that they understood what they're making.
That's pretty
Yeah,
cool. I like that.
I want that rule. That way I have to go play.
I like
it was
that.
great. Yeah, I mean, it was great. We didn't make them do it in the wintertime, but us golfers would go in the wintertime to play south and just like rent a big house because we had to keep playing golf.
That's a cool thing to do.
Well, and that company's so cool because like if you buy the club with it built in, it's
Mhm.
seamless. Like my driver has it.
Hmm.
No, my old driver has it. And you would never even know it's there. Like they did a great job with that.
Yeah, it's funny. The original sensors were quite a bit bigger and chunkier, and then fast forward a few years, and they've got them installed in grips, and you don't even know it's there.
Yep.
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
That
I
was
didn't catch it if you said it. I'm sorry.
like 2016.
2016. Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
2017. Yeah.
you'd mentioned National Custom, and I have kind of some notes, like you said, that I wanted to ask you, but can you talk a little bit about how that kind of collaboration or partnership started?
Sure. It's actually kind of a funny story. I was I socialized some stuff about 3D print, my first 3D printed prototype putters. And someone picked up a thread on it on WRX. And if you're not a paying advertiser on WRX, they'll kind of shut you down if you're trying to use their platform, usually really fast. But I noticed it and I started responding to people, and the conversations started flowing, and this thread stayed up for, I don't know, 24 hours or something. And I got a DM from Ari from National Custom saying, hey, I read this thread and what you're doing looks really, really cool. Would you make me a putter? And I said, sure. And I knew who Ari was. I remember Scratch Golf. I was a fan of the brand and their products and everything. And I said, sure, you know, let's swap. Like I'll swap you a putter for some irons and stuff and gear. He said, well, okay, if you make my business partner one too. So I made a putter for Patrick and a putter for Ari. And then I met them in person at the PGA show a couple months later and gave them their putters. And we hit it off. And you know, they just said, wow, this is a really cool concept. We believe in what you're doing. The product's great. They love their putters. They still have their putters. In fact, I've made them several more since. But you know, we just hit it off. We're all about the same age, and we have the same attitudes towards business and life and golf and everything. We just get along really well. And so I partnered up with them, and for a couple of years, I mentioned that I created the sub brand of 3DP Design. For a couple of years, all of the product was co-branded NCW and 3DP.
Gotcha.
That's what I wanted to touch on, yeah, because before I've been following you a while.
Mhm.
Before it was 3DP Design, but I couldn't remember what the name of it was. And I've always been curious why the name changed. So that kind
Yeah,
of
we just kind of, we're all, I mean, it eventually became really clear that it was really a combination of three brands, all kind of going in three different directions. The club business is National Custom Works, the Farrell business is BB&F Co, and the putter business, it just made more sense to spin it off as a separate brand, especially with the growing focus on accessories. The accessory side of the business is actually, I think, bigger than the custom putter, the boutique putter market. And I think that's largely just due to price points. You know, there are a shocking number of guys out there who will drop, you know, 4 figures on a putter. It kind of blows my mind how many of them there are. That said, there are a whole lot more people out there that will spend 50 or $100 on a really cool accessory.
Yeah.
And people that are into
I'm
the
guilty.
brand, you know, they're just more likely to get into that whole market and that ecosystem and support your brand and get involved when they can enter at a price point, you know, in that range. And they can start collecting and maybe someday buy a putter. Most guys that buy really, really expensive putters, most of them, again, there are some crazy outliers, you know, really good clients who buy a ton of stuff, but most people aren't buying, you know, $1,000 putter every year. You know, sometimes it's once every couple of years, whatever. Whereas people who collect accessories, some of those people are buying, you know, a new piece every week or a new piece every month.
Sure.
It's
Every
just a lot
release,
easier.
they're buying them.
Yeah.
Do you-
And the accessories business has been growing really fast, and it just sort of made sense to push it all in that direction, putters and accessories under the same brand.
so I don't want to interrupt you, but
Oh, yeah.
I had like a little brain blast,
Ooh,
which
little
doesn't really
plane?
happen.
I can't even say it right now.
A plane, I
A
wish.
brain blast.
So we've had like Mark from Kraken on and you
Mhm.
know, guys like him. Do you find people are collecting your accessories? Like people collect his markers or people collect I can't think of it, the little ghost.
Like they have the ghost,
Jamie Coggin.
but then yeah, like the divot tools too. I was
Yeah.
ball markers, divot tools. Like
Sure.
they pretty much are like they find that one person that they really like their product and they like literally are just like on the bandwagon the whole time. They'll buy every
Yes.
release.
Those are the best clients, the absolute best
Yeah.
clients to have.
Yep.
And I would always love to have more of them, but yeah, I definitely have quite a few of those guys who, you know, you see the same names every time you drop something new, and like you've got some reliable clients who are collecting who grab that, and if they miss something, they'll contact you and be like, hey, I missed that drop, you know, that one sold out before I got it, you know, when are you going to drop another one? Yeah, you know, to have fans of your work like that is awesome and, you know, inspiring. Like to have people who really, really like what you do is great. You know, it kind of validates all the things that you put all that effort into.
It's gonna be super rewarding. Can we,
We kind of had that.
what's that?
If somebody's like, "Hey, we like what you're doing.
Oh,
Let's
yeah.
partner up."
Yeah.
I don't even probably say it yet, but
Yeah.
like that was really cool.
That is very cool. It means a lot. Like you said, when you're
Yeah.
doing something, you're putting a lot of time and effort into something, and somebody kind of recognizes that and takes a
Mhm.
moment to actually respond and reach out. It does go a long way.
I need to buy another one for my keys because I keep looking at my keys and I'm like, it needs a ferrule. I'm just like, damn it.
uh, can we rewind a little bit and just kind of maybe talk like where you like talk about how you got into the idea of even
Sure.
started making putters and like you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I want to make putters and accessories. Like, can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
I was an investment banker,
Okay.
in an office on Wall Street, miserable, practicing putting on my carpet while I was stuck on conference calls, um,
Sounds like you.
which is a normal thing to do, actually. You'd be surprised, but lots of bankers have putters in their offices. And I started collecting putters. I started smuggling putters into my office in FedEx tubes, um, trying to like figure out what was the best putter for me, testing putters, obsessing over this brand or that brand, trying this shape, that shape, trying everything, and spending ridiculous numbers of hours just putting with the same 10-foot putt in my office over and over and over and over again. And developing eventually like a real passion for putters and the whole industry, and looking at all these other different brands and what they were doing and how they were doing it, and everybody basically wanting to be like the next Scotty Cameron, and saying to myself, that's kind of not the way I would do it. And then thinking to myself, well, how would I do it? And starting to daydream about becoming a putter maker, designing putters, marketing putters, like just figuring out like what it is that I would want to make and how I would want to make it, and what I would want the brand to be all about. I mean, if you read my stuff, I post tons of stuff on Instagram. I do a regular weekly Tuesday story, which is basically just a big ask me anything. And I try to keep it golf and putter related, but eventually, every once in a while, it digresses a bit. But anyway, I'm kind of the anti BS brand. Like people ask me all the time about this gimmick or that gimmick, and I'm very upfront with everyone that the golf industry is filled with marketing gimmicks, and they're just ripping people off left and right. And I've always been offended by that. And I try to be the straight shooter who doesn't blow smoke and just explains to people like, no, that's kind of nonsense, and here's why. And here are things that are good, and here's how you figure out what you need, and here's how you figure out, how to move forward in the game. And I try to be helpful in that regard, but I also, I mean, I don't mind being the sort of the bomb thrower who's anti-establishment, saying like, no, these big corporations are just ripping you off. I don't mind that. And so I've always kind of had a bit of that ethos in my brand. I'm glad to be the voice of reason, the voice of truth, the person not trying to rip you off. So, I launched into the putter business. I was like, when I left banking, I was like, what do I want to do? This is really what I want to do. It's been a daydream, but if I am in a position where I can actually choose and create my own job, that's what I want to do. So I left New York and I moved down to Florida, which is a great place to start a business, right? Life there is so much cheaper. There's no income tax. Everything's like, New York City is a terrible place to be an entrepreneur unless you have like massive funding behind you. But if you're just starting up like a small business like I did, Florida's great. Plus there's year-round golf. So I moved down to Florida, said, all right, I'm going to teach myself CAD. And I sat down with like a beer and a laptop and thought it would take like 2 weeks. And it took quite a bit longer. I mean, and it's a never-ending learning process. I still learn new stuff all the time, but I just sat down and said, all right, I'm going to design some putters, and eventually I did. And I went about finding a good contract machinist to make them for me, and I did that. And then I took a little detour for a couple of years to join Arcos, which I mentioned earlier. Then discovered 3D printing and went back all in on 3D printing putters. And now what's really kind of amusing is, as much as I've dissed like milling putters over the years, I'm actually right about to drop a new line of milled putters. But but with a total twist, right? In creating 3D printed putters, I developed all sorts of new techniques, because it's so different, right? It's very, very different than milling a putter. And you have to do things differently, and it allows you to do some things differently and much better. It has so much more design freedom. You can change the internal geometry of the putter, not just the external. You need to do something to the face because 3D printing won't create a perfectly flat face like milling does. In fact, it's one of the reasons why milling became popular for making putters in the first place, is that you can use a CNC mill to make basically a perfectly flat face. 3D printing will make a pretty flat face, but not perfectly flat. So you either need to mill it somehow after the fact, or use a face insert of another material that is flat. What I developed was a way to 3D print a putter with all sorts of complex internal geometry underneath the hood. So if you ever took the face insert out of one of my 3D printed putters, and I don't recommend you do that, you would find other materials in there, other shapes, spaces. There'd be a whole load of tungsten in the toe and heel.
Interesting.
You shouldn't have said it, 'cause now all I want to do is take one apart.
Yeah,
uh,
don't tempt us.
yeah, that wouldn't be very easy, by the way, either.
Oh, if there's a will, there's a way.
You probably have to like cut it open, but
Really?
I'm cutting it open.
there's so much more tungsten like in the toe and heel to properly weight it and actually center the center of gravity on the center line. You know, most milled putters are totally unbalanced, especially like all the answer blades.
Yep.
The neck is so much heavier than
Than
that
the
little
actual,
cut
like-
off the heel. Like it's ridiculous.
Sure.
They're like a 1/4 inch off the center line, which is terrible.
That's like
The
my
whole
favorite
point-
putter.
Yeah, the whole point of milling a putter is that it's very, very accurate and precise, and it's going to make the shape that you design on your computer screen. But all of these people are designing unbalanced shapes just because they look symmetrical, and it's just, I don't know. Don't get me started on that.
That's a very interesting take, though. Yeah,
It's
I like
totally
that.
true. But so I've developed all of these techniques to make a good 3D printed putter, and I'm production limited, right? There's only so many 3D printed putters I can make at a time, whereas CNC milling is actually really, really good for mass production. So it occurred to me to try to blend the two together and use a lot of the techniques that I've developed for 3D printing with a milled putter. So I'm about to drop a line of, I call it the Robertson, but it's basically it's like an answer style putter.
Yep.
I'll drop a line of answers with a face insert and all of the same stuff underneath the hood that I do with a 3D printed putter. So it'll have the MOI of a TaylorMade Spider in an answer style shape.
Very cool. You're like literally answering like half the questions that I've had on my list. So these are good.
Well, and
Cool.
like for me, the answer is my favorite putter.
Yeah.
Literally, that's what I use as an
Yeah.
answer. I wanted to ask so Cobra came out with 3D printed putters.
That's right. They did it. They're like one of the first ones, at least like
Like
a
on
global
the
big scale of
big
like big
scale,
names.
yeah.
They're the first big OEM to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. How do yours differ, or are
Oh.
they similar in a sense?
No, they differ in a couple big ways. First off, I'll say that I'll only give Cobra credit for actually producing one 3D printed putter. The first one that they did actually was 3D printed steel. I'm gonna call it fugly. Sorry to whoever designed that, I apologize, but I went down the same rabbit hole they did. When you first discover 3D printing, you realize all of these amazing capabilities that it has. Like you can create geometries, especially complex internal geometries, that you can't make with CNC milling. Like you can't get a drill bit into the inner parts of a putter head and create lattice structures and everything the way 3D printing can. And so when you first discover that as a designer, you kind of go buck wild on it. And you're like, oh my God, I can do this, I can do that, and I can do that. And you end up creating something that's like, from an engineering standpoint, remarkable, but no one really wants to look at. You know, everybody's used to seeing the same shapes because they've been seeing them for 50, 60 years.
Yep.
And they've gotten cleaner and better produced over the years with the advent of CNC milling and all of that. But everybody's basically playing the same putter that Karsten Solheim created in like 1965 or something, you know? And they're all used to seeing that. And if you create something that's a little too far over the edge in terms of its like modernity, people just call it ugly. It happens all the time. And I would say that first Cobra putter, I think they only made 400 of them or something.
There wasn't a whole lot, right?
No, it was only like $400 too. Those were actually, they had a 3D print, like they were made of 3D printed steel. Everything that they've made since then that they label 3D printed, I would argue with their claim that it's 3D printed, because it's a cast, just a plain old cast steel body with a chunk of 3D printed plastic in it. So if you 3D print the gear shift knob on your car, did you make a 3D printed car? No,
Yeah,
I would
no,
argue
exactly.
you did
Okay,
not.
so
So
I see where he's
I
going.
mean,
yeah,
I'm maybe their lawyers will send me a nasty gram tomorrow, but
well, that'll
I'm
be good
I'm
for
gonna
all of us
disagree
because that
with
means that they're
their
listening still, right?
I mean, this isn't going out tomorrow. So that
Well, Friday, yeah.
that so if you get one tomorrow, that means
There's
somebody else is
somebody's
listening.
leaking something.
Yeah.
I
There's only
would
two of us.
personally disagree with their claim that they're making 3D printed putters. They're making cast putters with a chunk of 3D printed plastic in it.
I do have so many questions now based off this, but like starting, like you,
That's why I asked.
yeah, this you open a can of worms here,
I
but like
did.
first off, A, do you think that the future is in 3D printing putters? Do you think that's going to be kind of the wave, not only just for like obviously for your style, but like some of these bigger companies like Cobra that's kind of trying to do that? Do you think that's going to happen down the road with a lot of these other companies?
So it's a really interesting question and an interesting like insight into the marketplace and the producers, the OEMs. The reason you see Cobra as the first big OEM diving into 3D printing is that they didn't have a putter business to begin with, right?
That's
They
true.
didn't
Yeah.
have any, they stopped making putters years ago. They hadn't made anything before for like a
Mhm.
decade before they made that 3D printed putter. They didn't have any sunk costs already sucked into manufacturing lines that they would be throwing away. Like if you went to Titleist today and said, hey, I've got this great idea for a 3D printed putter, they'd be like, yeah, well, we've already invested tons and tons of money in production lines. We've got all of these designs that we've refined. We've got relationships with contract manufacturers. We've got, you know, everything is set up. We've sent tons of money into our existing production lines. We're not about to just turn around and do something new and throw all that away. They're only going to do that once the market demands that they do it. And it's sort of a little bit of a chicken and an egg. If Titleist turned around and dropped a 3D printed putter tomorrow, the whole world would go gaga for 3D printed putters.
And also everyone else is going to be doing the same thing, trying to piggyback off that.
Exactly. But they're
Yeah.
not going to do that until the
Right.
world actually demands that they make a 3D printed putter. So chicken and egg, right?
Sure.
Most of the guys that get into putter manufacturing, the small boutique guys like me, come from the machining world. You know,
Mhm.
you've talked to plenty of them. You've had them on your show. You
Yep.
ask them, how did you get into making putters? And they're like, well, I was a machinist. You know, I was running a CNC mill, and I love golf. And I thought, well, I could make a putter, and so they do. I'm that rare person that came from a completely different industry. I'm not a machinist. I've not been trained in any of those things. I mean, my degrees are in economics and finance, and I just said, this is what I want to do. So I'm going to sit down and teach myself and beat my head against the wall until I do it. I'm going to make putters until I make a good putter. And you know, years and years and years go by and you do it, right? You know, if you can figure it out, you figure it out. But that's also why you see someone like me doing things that are completely outside the box and saying, all right, 3D printing, let's go. I can, if you're a CNC machinist and you own a CNC mill, like even the guys that you've talked to are like garage shop guys, they dropped like $100,000 on that used CNC mill. They don't want to talk about 3D printing because they don't own a 3D printer, right? They already dropped $100,000 on their mill. They want a mill.
Yep.
And so it takes someone like me coming from outside the industry looking in to say, let's do something new. Let's do something different. I'm not wed. I'm not tied to, I don't have any sunk costs that I'm going to be throwing away by moving away from CNC milling. Yes, I do think the future lies in 3D printing, not necessarily exclusively. I don't think the whole market's going to shift over to 3D printing. But 3D printing does have some huge advantages over CNC milling, most notably in terms of customization. So you have to look at the economies of scale. The cost, if you went to a contract machinist and said, I want to make one putter, a custom putter, It's going to have 2 degrees of lie or 2 degrees of loft and a 67-degree lie angle, and it's going to be 380 grams, and it's going to be shaped just like this. And you brought that to a machine shop, they'd say, okay, $1,000 for one. Ah, how many for 100? You'd be like, well, 10,000. So it's either 1,000 for one or 100 for one,
You gotta
depending on
spend-
if
yep.
you order 1 or 100, right? Just using round numbers. If you go to a 3D print shop, it's not going to be it's going to be more than $100 to make that 3D printed putter, but it's going to be the same cost whether you order 1 or 100. So maybe it's $200, $250 to print that head. It's going to be the same price no matter what. So if you want an absolute one-off, something that's totally custom, just made for you, it's $1,000 to mill it. It's a couple $100 to 3D print it. The downsides to that are the surface finish. Like the surface finish on a CNC milled putter is very sharp, shiny. 3D printed is very matte and rough, dull looking. You can polish it by hand, but that's very labor intensive and expensive. So, you've got your pros and cons in both directions. I think over time, 3D printers are going to improve in the surface quality of what they can achieve. And they will become cheaper and cheaper, not necessarily cost competitive with CNC in terms of high volume production, but the cost of making like mass customized putters will drop to the point where you'll see at some point, I thought it would have happened already, to be honest, but at some point you'll start to see some big OEM offering like a build your own putter kind of thing, where they'll have a website where you say, I want this shape and I want it this weight and I want it this loft, this neck. I want my name engraved here and here and here, and then you push a button and in like 3 weeks it comes in the mail.
Kind of
I
reminds
think
me of like
that's
Nike ID to an
Yeah.
extent.
To an
Yeah.
extent.
To like where you can like custom make your
Yeah.
own like
I'd rather
Kobe's or
like a
whatever shoes.
putter.
But yeah, but I mean, but like to your
Oh no, I know.
like it
Now
makes,
the issue is I'm sitting here, I'm just like, what would I put on my putter? Like taco.
I'm gonna do a Minneapolis downtown theme skyline.
Oh, I'm putting margarita on it.
That'd be cool.
I can
But-
do all that.
Well,
I did
that
a
we-
DC skyline theme putter once. Turned out really good.
Yeah, so I got the tattoo of the Minneapolis part of the Minneapolis skyline. So that
Nice.
might be something that I'd like to do down
You guys
the
know
road.
this is my hometown, right?
What's that?
You guys know that I'm a Minnesota guy, right? I grew up in
No, I
Shoreview.
didn't know.
Yeah.
Are you
Yeah, I'm from
really?
Shoreview.
Sweet.
Are you always pumped that the Twins finally won a game as I am, or
There you go.
The
Nah, I
stadium's
can't say I'm
right down
I'm
the
a
road.
baseball fan, but
oh
That's okay. They still won though. So that's
yeah,
Yeah.
first time in 18 years.
Yeah. So
Nice.
whereabouts in Minnesota?
Shoreview.
Shoreview. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
So
you're
you're not
like-
far
it's
at
like
all.
right over
Just the
there.
suburbs. Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife and I, we live downtown. This is kind of we call it the Save Par Golf headquarters for now, but eventually we're trying to get a spot here that will
I live in
Build a
the
record.
I live in the suburbs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so very cool. That's awesome. I didn't know that. So
No,
that's
I
good to
wasn't
know.
aware.
But going back to the 3D machines and like the CNC milled, all that, is that something too where the costs are up the front for you? Is it are they really expensive for like what you're trying to do? I mean, obviously
I would imagine like a good CNC machine is
versus like a 3D
Or, I'm
print-
sorry,
no, but like just in
3D
general, like
printing.
3D
yeah.
printing, I mean, those CNC are very expensive. Like, so it could be $100,000 or more. But
Yeah.
on the 3D side, like, what is the big difference on price range from CNC to 3D printing?
Well, you've got it's pretty complicated. So I don't own a 3D printer.
Okay.
I outsource all of the printing
Sure.
because of the economy. The way a good 3D printer will cost like $1 million. Metal 3D.
I thought you were gonna
Yeah.
spit your water.
Almost did. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
I'm not like I'm familiar with 3D printing, but not to this extent. So I think, like I said, it's
Prices
I'm
are
not
coming
familiar
down.
with 3D metal printing. That is
Yeah.
new for me.
It's very different than printing in plastic. 3D metal printers they're coming down in price and new technologies are coming. The industry is actually going through a little bit of a down cycle right now and a consolidation. But new technologies are coming. And that's one of the reasons I haven't bought a printer is that, well, one is that a really good one costs $1 million. Two is the technologies are improving. So if you buy something today, you're kind of stuck with it for a while. And I think new stuff is going to come sooner rather than later. And three, the economics of it are that if you own a machine like that, you need to run it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to try to get your maximum amount of money out of it. And so you need to fill the build box, run after run after run. I don't have the volume to do that. So I go to contract shops that are, mixing my parts with other people's parts and filling the box and keeping their printers running 24/7. And that you can do the same thing with CNC mills, right? So I mentioned I'm about to drop a milled putter line. I've outsourced the CNC milling to a contract machinist. You'd be shocked that a ton of small putter companies out there that are kind of almost trying to make it look like they do their own milling really don't. They just go, CNC milling, all these putter guys want to make it sound as though that's like a competitive advantage of theirs. They're super good at milling, but it's almost a commoditized thing. If you got if you find a contract machinist who's talented, they make parts for helicopters and for missiles and stuff, really high tolerance, complicated parts. They can make putter. You send them a design, they make the part, they ship it to you. It's not that complicated.
How long does it typically take for you to, like, if like Dom and I were to place a customer, for example, like we just talked about, I would do the Minneapolis skyline, you wanted to do
Tacos and
tacos and
margaritas.
margaritas. How long,
Love
I mean,
that.
if we sat down and kind of like went kind of back and forth a little bit, like, hey, this is kind of what we want, how long does it take from like start to finish?
On average, 3 to 4 months.
3 to 4 months. Okay.
It takes a good amount of time. So, it all starts with a spec conversation, like a consult. The first question out of my mouth for any client is, have you ever been fit for a putter? If a client has been fit, I have them mail me their specs. If a client, and then go through what their current putter is, what they like about it, what they don't like about it. If a client has never been fit before, I'll encourage them to just go to a decent fitter and go through your standard SAM Putt Lab fitting protocol. If they don't have access to that, maybe they live
get
someplace
fit for a putter.
Yeah, that's a good
I was not aware.
I mean, you can get
Oh, yeah.
fitted for it, just like the length and all that stuff, but like when it comes to like
Loft.
I mean, there's so many
I
other,
thought it was all just preference based.
like, how tall are you? You should have a
No.
34-inch or a 33-inch putter, but
I
there's
think
so many
mine.
other
I think
things
mine's
that-
There's
34.
always a range, and I always encourage people to experiment like crazy. People ask me, should I use this length or that length? It's like, well, which one do you put butter with? You don't know until you try. And
Yeah.
I will do video analysis with a client if they don't have any access to a good fitter. And we can get most of the way there, but it always requires some level of experimentation, particularly for things like length and head weight, and toe hang, the amount of toe flow that a client needs. A lot of times, most of my clients, they're spending a lot of money. Putter is pretty expensive, so they're spending a lot of money. A lot of them have already gone through custom putter ordering before. A lot of them have been buying and collecting clubs for a long time. So many of my clients already know exactly what they want. But occasionally I have clients who are just, like new to the whole custom thing, and they're like, I want one of yours. Like, I read what you write on Instagram. I believe in that you can, like, give me a really good experience. So let's go. And I do. I will coach them through how to take proper video of themselves putting, and I'll analyze that video and I'll break it down for them. And it's funny, any fitting for any club can cross between, like, there's a fine line between a club fitting and a lesson. And so occasionally I'll give a client like a little tip saying, hey, if you just change this little thing, but I try to stay away from that and just fit to the stroke and say, right, here's what you need, here's what I can make for you, and then go from there to say, well, what is it that you want aesthetically, like shape, finish, alignment markings, engravings, you want the skyline of Minneapolis, you want tacos and margaritas, all that stuff. So the spec conversation, and if a client goes like totally overboard and says, all right, I want a custom shape, like I want to draw this shape on a napkin and I want you to create an entirely new shape for me, and I do that takes a lot longer. But if they want, if they want a shape from my existing library, and the library is huge, I think I have like
Yeah, I was looking. You got a bunch of
32
different
shapes
options.
now.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot to choose from, and I can put any neck on any putter. Like going back to our earlier comments about the differences between 3D printing and CNC milling, that's it right there, is that when you CNC mill, you have to order a batch. And you know, if you're a big company, you're trying to make that batch as big as possible. But even if you're a small company, you want to order like at least 100 of these things at a time. Well, they're all going to have the same neck, right? Or you make it without a neck and then have a little hole there and you weld in a neck so that you can sort of half-ass it and have
Yep.
one shape with multiple necks. That's 3D printing is just the opposite. Like I can put any neck on any putter and just print one. Like it's no problem at all. I don't have to order 100 of something at a time. If you
Which
want,
is huge for you.
that's super
awesome.
huge. Like
Yeah.
if you see any shape in my library, you're like, yeah, I really want that, but I want a center shaft on it. I'm like, yeah, that's cake. Like
No problem.
done.
Do you have
So-
a favorite, not to interrupt, do you have a favorite shape that you like to work with or that's more popular than others?
The most popular is the Robertson, the answer shape. Sell a ton of McCoys, which is like a heel shafted blade. And
That
that's
looks a lot
that
like my putter.
Mhm.
I like the simpler shapes if I'm polishing them. The polishing is really challenging on any shape, any putter with a cavity pocket, really tough to get in there to polish. Simpler, cleaner lines are much easier to work with. But I like all the shapes. I mean, I play an Octolani, which all the names all come from old Scottish club makers.
You taking my question? Yeah, I was
Yeah.
literally just gonna ask you that. Yeah, I was like, where did you get all the names?
Well, not the McGilmore.
Well, just
No,
in
no,
general.
because
Yeah,
there are a
the
couple. Yeah,
Montgomery's-
you're right. There are a couple exceptions. McGilmore's a
Yeah.
joke.
I like
It's
that
a hockey
shape, though.
style putter.
Yeah.
The McCoy is actually
center,
named
yeah,
after
of
Jeff
course.
McCoy, which is National Custom Works wedge grinder. It's a shape
Okay.
that he made by hand for himself, and then I made a
Oh,
clone
wow.
of it. And the Boyd is for Patrick Boyd. Is the first shape I made for him. He just said he wanted something boxy like a Volvo. And that's what
Very
he got.
cool.
And so I named it after him. But
That's Bellwood.
Yeah, that's
the
sweet.
rest
The
are
one-
all named after old Scottish club makers. So
Very
yeah, I
cool.
mean, I like all the shapes.
That's sweet.
I personally like a rather thin sort of heel shafted blade with a lot of toe hang, but I like them all. But to go back to your earlier question of, you know, like what's the process like? How long does
Yeah.
it take? So after you spec a putter out, I'll put together a CAD model for the project. Sometimes it's something like I already have completely off the shelf. Sometimes I have to move a neck around, make a neck taller, move a neck to change the amount of toe hang.
Been a while.
That's
Um,
wild.
And then maybe change some of the internal geometry to accommodate a different weight target, or maybe a different sort of face material. Like if a client wants to use a specific sort of Damascus steel or something, I might need to change the geometry to accommodate a thicker insert. I'll put together a CAD model and then I'll send it off to the printers. Takes a couple of weeks for the print to come. And then it's just a function of like how busy the putter queue is, and how much handwork is needed to perhaps polish the putter, but assemble it. You know, a lot of the stuff is really done by hand. We talked a lot about 3D printing and how unique and interesting that is. But at the end of the day, a lot of the work is just, you know, assembly, like polishing and assembling a product and installing shafts and grips and lasering stuff. And yeah, so on average, I say 3 to 4 months, but you know, a really complex project can take 6 months. A really easy
do you have, like,
project can take 6 weeks.
Okay. I was just say, do you have like a backlog right now with like where it gets beyond that? I mean, obviously it's probably a good thing for business, but maybe not a bad or not a good thing just in general, as far as like you don't want to get too far behind where people are like,
I
that's a little
manage,
too-
yeah. What I do is I put custom slots on the website and say,
Okay.
you know, that you know, sometimes we're full, sometimes we have open spots. Like I think there's probably one on the website right now, and if you want to just go grab it, you just take a, you know, you throw down a deposit. I think it's just like $1 or something to say I'm claiming that spot. But if there are no spots, that means we're full. And you know, occasionally like a really good client who orders a lot of stuff will just contact me directly and be like, hey, do you have any open spots? And if I can do it, and I'll move things around to accommodate that person.
Mhm.
But yeah, for the most part, you know, it sucks. It really, really sucks to have clients backed up and waiting and unhappy and saying, where's my putter? Where's my putter? They're always happy once they get the putter, The
Right.
people who had to wait longer than you told them are not happy. And so I do everything I can to avoid that happening.
Yep.
And just managing the queue by having so many slots. At the start of the month, I sort of look out at the month and say, all right, how does the queue look? And I'll drop, a couple slots, sometimes none, sometimes 3 or 4.
What? Okay, so you leave New York, you go to Florida, you start a
Mhm.
business. What has been like, what is one of the toughest things about starting this company? Like one of the things maybe that you really enjoy and one of the things you really just dislike.
Honestly, for me, the toughest part of the business is marketing.
Is what was it? Marketing?
Marketing.
Oh, okay.
Marketing. I'm not a natural marketer. It's not my forte. I really like making products. I really like designing products. I really like working with clients and bringing their visions to reality. I don't enjoy selling stuff, getting stuff out into the world. Social media is not natural for me at all. Like I hate Facebook. I've always hated
I hate
Facebook. I'm
Facebook
kind of
too.
that in-between generation. I'm a little bit older. I'm 46.
Okay.
So, like I didn't grow up with Instagram. I'm kind of late to that whole game. I do it, I enjoy it. I try to keep it fun and golf focused. Like if somebody
Is that
asks
what?
me a question about politics on my regular Tuesday story, I just don't answer it.
Yeah.
Um,
I I'm all about the Instagram too, and or Instagram, and I'm not a big Facebook fan. But I was gonna say, is that where most of your customers come from? Is
yeah,
social media or Instagram?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Um, I know we don't want to take too much more of your time, but we do have a couple questions. We'll do some rapid fire questions, but obviously I'm sure Dom has some questions. But I also wanted to ask about your accessories. We talked about it beforehand,
Sure.
about kind of being a little bit more popular than your drivers. Can you talk about
Putters.
or your not drivers,
Definitely
putters? Yeah, yeah.
more popular than drivers.
Yes. Do you prefer making the divot tools and ball markers over the putters?
You know, at first I was really reluctant to get into accessories. It was just sort of like people kept asking for stuff, and I was like, yeah, I really want to make putters. Putters are still they were my first passion that got me into golf, the golf business, and they're still probably my biggest passion. But I've really come to enjoy making um accessories because I took the same sort of attitude that I took towards putters. It was like, I'm going to do this my way. I'm going to figure out new things to make. I'm going to try to use 3D printing to make cool stuff. Um, I do make some milled stuff as well, but I do a lot of laser work, trying to make cool stuff with lasers. I make all the aluminum ferrules for BB&F, which is something that was totally out of left field. Like, and I really enjoyed doing it. It's fun to create new stuff, new products, just things that other people aren't making. Like with the ferrule thing, like I remember I used to always ask Patrick, like, how can you put your logo on a ferrule? Because someone's going to try to rip you off at some point. And he's like, nah, you can't do it. But no one's going to be able to really rip me off. They just can't do it the way I do it. And I thought, no, someday someone's going to come and try to rip you off. And sure enough, fast forward a couple of years, and there are plenty of upstart ferrule makers that you can find out there that are trying to rip him off. And now their product clearly isn't up on his level yet. The quality isn't there, the design quality certainly isn't there, but they're coming for it. And so I kept thinking in the back of my mind, like, how do I help Patrick take his business to the next level? Like, bring in a new product, bring in like branding and logos and something other than just colored plastic rings. And I came up with the aluminum ferrule idea and started lasering these things. And it's just so out of left field. And when you see some of those ferrules, like you see the ones like some of the more popular designs are stuff like the $100 bill. Nobody's making stuff like that. It's totally out of left field. And I really enjoy coming up with new stuff like that and seeing. It's really funny. We joke about it all the time. Like the things that we like the best are the things that don't sell. And the things that we produce, that we come up with and we're like, I don't know. Those are the things that sell the best. It's
Crazy.
just kind of funny. There's almost like a perfect inverse correlation. But I really do enjoy coming up with. Yeah, I really enjoy like I do all the laser work in-house, and it's fun, man. It's like coloring laser stuff on titanium is just so cool. And the way it changes color in the light, I love making all that stuff. Um,
So I won't
so
tell you
yeah, I
which
mean,
one you
I'd
got.
say I enjoy putters more than accessories, but
The
I
lasering's
do enjoy
badass.
making
Is it?
accessories.
Yeah.
How about the Venmo bag tag? I think that's fantastic and it's a great
Oh, thank
idea.
you. The Venmo bag tag was actually a client suggestion. I I was playing with the laser and titanium and making all these colored things, and I came up with the idea of making bag tags, and I showed some of the first ones on Instagram, and a client like almost instantly was like, "Dude, you should put a Venmo tag on that." I was like, "That's a great idea." So I
Yeah.
did it, and everybody's like, "Yeah, give me one, give me one." I even make a mini one for people that already have their own bag tag, like from their club,
Yep.
but still want like a little Venmo code. So I make one that's like half size.
Very cool.
You put Zoe on one.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I saw that. The dog one too. That's very cool.
Yeah, we've got your website up, and
Yeah, we weren't ignoring it earlier. When we're talking about the putters. We were literally just kind of admiring all the different options.
yeah, there's some wild ones.
Yeah, thanks. It's that's one of the things that I really enjoy about the way I do all of these things is that there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of options. There's a lot of choices. I mean, it's not just so like, batch of this drop, sell out, batch of that drop, sell out. There's like a lot of the stuff I can make on command. So if you want, like the bag tags are custom, particularly if you want your Venmo code on it, it has to be custom, right? It has to be made to order. So I set that up so that a client can just say, all right, of those 6 designs, I want this one on the front and I want my Venmo code in the back. And they just email me their Venmo code and I just push the button and make it. And that's, that sort of production on demand thing is pretty rare in this industry. And it's cool to be able to do stuff like that.
Might be a cool idea for like tournaments and stuff.
I'm not
Yeah.
taking anybody's money.
Totally.
No, I mean for tournament play.
Oh, like for
like
us.
if
Oh,
we want
okay.
to do like a putting challenge, we can just like have our golf bag. If
I
we
thought
have
you meant like
sponsor.
I'm gonna like get paid
No,
out
no,
of
no, no,
this.
no.
I
But
was
like it's a
no.
it's an easy way to be like if you're socializing with somebody and you're trying to do a raffle or anything like that, you could just put one of those on a bag that you're maybe doing a sponsor for or whatever it might be.
Well, we just have to be throwing events.
So 2 quick questions, and then if Dom, if you want to fire off some questions, then we got some rapid fire questions. But do you do a lot of like bulk orders, like for whether it's bachelor parties, weddings, or
more.
like gifts? Do you do a
Yeah,
lot of
more
that?
and more. Yeah, more and
Okay.
more.
And th-
I just got an order today for 88 items for a member guest event.
oh, very cool.
Filled an order last month for 96 bag tags. I'll take an order for 4 items if you want to just I'll take an order for 1 item, I don't care. Like it'll cost a little bit more. If you order in bulk, I can give you like a bulk discount.
Sure.
But yeah, I get orders all the time from guys who are like, hey, we have a buddy's trip going up. We have a bachelor party coming up. Can you make me 12 ball markers with all of the same? And yeah, I love doing orders like that. Those are the funnest because,
What
like
is
those
the
guys are having a blast and they really appreciate like the custom personalized stuff to memorialize an event that means something to them.
sure?
Could you laser print our logo onto like a ferrule?
Yeah.
That'd be sweet.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
something cool that we should try to
On
talk
my
about doing. Yeah.
keys.
What is it like the ETA on that? If you do like a larger bulk order, what's the turnaround if you do like on a bag tag, for example?
Bag tags are really fast.
Okay.
The bulk of the time is in just finalizing the design, making a proof. Because you have to get the colors right, and that takes a while to dial in. Lasers are a little finicky, and clients are a little finicky. So if it's a logo that they really care about, you have to get it just right. And sometimes they want a little bigger, a little smaller. So sometimes you go through a few iterations just to dial it in. But once you've got it dialed in, it's pretty fast. Like I cranked out that order of 96 bag tags in like a day and a half.
Oh wow. So for our listeners or viewers who are watching,
You almost call them.
I did. Like where would they go to try to put a bulk order in? Would they DM you directly? Is there a
Yeah,
spot on
just
your
DM
website?
me.
Okay, DM you.
I'm always working on the website. I kind of hate doing a website.
It's a lot of work.
It's a ton of work.
Yeah.
And I've been putting more time in it lately, trying to just improve all of the information on there, the organization of it. I have a section on there. I need to bulk it up with examples from recent like bulk orders that I've done. But yeah, if they just DM me or email me or whatever from the website, they can get all the information they want. Like oftentimes it's when it's a bulk order like that, it's oftentimes easier to just talk to someone on the phone and be like, all right,
Sure.
tell me what you need, and I'll give them a price quote. And yeah,
Are you pretty much like a one man
for
shop?
the most
Do you
part.
have
For
okay.
the most part, yeah. I mean, I outsource as much as I can because there's always limits in what one person can accomplish. Most of the stuff is just me.
Dom, do you have any questions before we fire some rapid fire questions?
I just want like a custom logo ferrule at this point.
That'd be pretty cool. Do like
That's
the
really easy to do.
yellow pink, like the Save Par Golf podcast, the flower, like that would be sick
No,
on
the
a
one
fire.
with our little characters.
Ooh, that would be sweet too.
Yeah, we like
So
wrap
we'll
them
definitely
around.
send you some DMs or some
The
emails.
ferrules are all sold through BB&F, and
Okay.
we have it set up on the website for custom orders too.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to dig into that.
Yeah, we'll definitely dig into that.
Cool.
So we do have a few rapid fire questions, but I just kind of want to get an idea where you were talking 200 rounds of golf a year back, a few
Yeah.
years back. Where was your golf game at that point, handicap wise, and where is it at now?
I bottomed out at a 1.8. I never hit scratch. Because we
That's
would never
close
go to the
enough.
range. We weren't allowed to go to the range. It was like we had to max out the number of holes we would play. This was crazy, right? So I was testing Arcos. It was an app, right? I would be playing golf, like speed golf, as many holes as we could play with like 5 phones in my pockets. It was
That's
kind of crazy.
crazy.
But it wasn't like golf to shoot a score. It was like golf to finish the number of holes, the maximum number of holes you could in a day to get the most amount of data in. So and playing that much golf, you can't play slow golf anymore. So I would never want to play golf on the weekends. Like I had zero interest in going to play like a 5-hour round on a Saturday. That wasn't happening.
So you were so wiped out from all the rounds of golf during the
Yeah.
week that you're like, I
Yeah.
just don't even want to play. Which I don't think I've ever heard that from anyone, that's kind of a cool problem to have.
I'm actually there right now. I just got home from a week in Sandhills. I don't know if you
How was
saw
it?
my story,
Oh,
but
dude, you should have. Obviously,
It's
like I
nuts.
follow him, so like I watched all of his stories. I know how many rounds. I know how many holes. How many holes do you think he played?
In what was it, a week or weekend?
7
Last
days.
weekend?
It was a
Weekend?
weekend.
7 days.
Oh, 7.
Week, yeah.
Oh, 7 days.
So
I'm gonna say like 100 and
no,
200 and
no. I know.
Okay,
Because
what is it?
I followed. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's like 338, right?
Yeah,
338 holes.
Yeah.
Man, that
yeah. It
my
was
neck
nuts.
would fall off.
I'm so tired.
I can imagine I'd be so sore.
Oh, my hands are sore.
Yeah, that like would think of Andy from The Office, like where he's got all the blisters. He just needs to just pump lotion in at that point for playing
I don't remember
that many
that.
rounds of golf. I couldn't even.
It was, but it was. I mean, it's as good as it gets. That place is so
Yeah.
pure.
That's very cool. Well, we're gonna fire off some.
Do you see why you should have followed him?
Well, I do follow you. I have followed him
Oh,
actually.
yeah.
I do follow you. So
I don't know.
but sometimes, like I said, I haven't really. I have to be honest with you. The last few months, I've been kind of on
yeah, he's been a little burnt
a
out.
little burnt out with my full-time gig, and I've just been. Sometimes you get on that social media, and you're just like, I just got to put it away for a little bit. So, I'm getting back into the flow of things though. So we're getting on the mend on that. But we're gonna fire off a couple rapid fire questions. They typically aren't rapid fire, but we're gonna try to shoot for that. Just got a few of
I
those.
tend to
So
be long-winded.
what's that? Yeah.
I tend to be long-winded.
So the first question is right off the bat, and we can just kind of rotate down here. But the first question here is currently what putter is in your bag?
It's been in the bag for about 3 years. It's an Oculani that I made, which is for those not familiar with all of our names. It's like a Scotty Cameron Coronado.
Okay. Is there any specific
That
design to it?
doesn't do anything for me.
It's one of the first putters that we ever made with a Mondrian face.
Okay.
And my clients will know what that means. You can find it on our website. A face with like lasered colors into it. It's very reminiscent of the art of Pierre Mondrian.
Okay. I'll let you follow up down with the next one.
So, what divot tool do you use? Do you have like one of the cool ferrule ones like I bought, or do you have just like the standard prong?
Dirty little secret. I typically just use a T.
I'll use that occasionally too. Yeah,
But-
when I put my T in my ear and
If I am going to use like a normal like something that I made, I have one. I always keep it in my bag. I have a fidget combo tool. That's a
I
ball
love
marker.
those.
Yeah, ball marker and pitchfork, double prong
divot tool.
fidget tool. And it's just so fun to fidget with. Oh man, like that of all my accessories, that's my favorite one of all time is either the combo fidget marker pitch tool or just the fidget markers, because
Mhm.
I hate slow golf. And when someone's sitting around on the green marking and remarking their ball just to move that stupid little line a tiny little bit. I'm just like, give me something to do. And so I fidget with that little marker, and it's just so it's like chewing gum, you know, it's like
Yeah.
mindless
That's what it
entertainment.
is. Gotcha.
Yeah. I just want one so bad.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it's so sparkly.
What is your lowest round of golf?
Well, I'll give you two. My lowest round, I've shot 68 twice, but neither were at like impressive golf courses. The best round I ever played, I shot 69 once from the middle tees at Sandhills. That was
In Hills? Oh wow,
that was
very cool.
that was amazing.
That might have been the shortest winded question we've had.
Yeah, that is actually that was the definition of a rapid fire question and answer there.
There you go.
What's the favorite course you've played?
I'm like beating a drum here. Sandhills. My favorite lifetime course, my home course, like where I want my ashes scattered, is the course at Yale. But Sandhills, Ari from National Custom is a member, and so I've been fortunate enough to get out there a handful of times. And I just spent last week out there, and that's as pure as it gets, man. That place is just heaven.
What's your go-to snack on the golf course?
Nicotine.
Nicotine.
Yeah.
Cigarettes or chew or what? It doesn't matter.
I like Swedish snus, or
Okay.
if not that, something like Zin. Yeah.
That's the first time we've had that answer for a snack on the course.
Yeah.
But it's not
You
an
don't really get
uncommon
hungry
snack.
when you're buzzed.
What's
you know?
that?
You don't really
Yeah.
get hungry when you're buzzed.
That's true.
That's fair, yeah.
That curbs the appetite. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
It does. Yeah.
Where are we? Oh, I hate this one. Because do you like early morning rounds or twilight rounds?
You know, I love twilight rounds when the weather's nice, but I live in Florida where it's usually not. So morning.
Yeah, I guess when it's super hot and
Oh, brutal.
humid, it's brutal. Currently, what is your favorite golf club in your bag?
Wow. I'm unusual. My golf bag is filled with old clubs. And I'm not talking like antique clubs. I'm talking like my hybrids are from 2007. There's nothing's ever kicked them out of the bag. They fit those gaps just perfectly. My driver's from like 2015, but nothing's kicked it out of the bag.
Yeah.
Favorite club in the bag has got to be the putter.
Very cool. I think that's pretty much all I have. But Dom, I'll let you ask this question because we always end with a food related question. So go ahead and ask however you want to ask it. We've asked it a couple different ways, but
Yeah, so take it however you want to interpret it because we've had it interpreted a couple different ways. You're dying tomorrow.
hopefully not.
Hopefully not.
Hypothetically.
That's supposed to be me knocking on wood. What's your last meal? We've had people do like what they're having for dinner. Last week I had them do breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Some people pick a restaurant.
Yeah.
Totally up to
What
you.
are you eating
Well,
on your last day?
This is a very, very lowbrow answer, but my death row meal is Popeyes.
I love
Popeyes,
I'm
okay.
not kidding. In past episodes of your podcast, which I have listened to, you always ask it like, we're coming to visit you in wherever you live. What are you gonna feed us? And so I'm gonna take
We're
it from
going to
that angle.
Popeyes.
We're going Popeyes.
No, we're not going to Popeyes.
Damn it.
So you guys live in Minnesota, and there isn't a lot of good seafood up there. The local delicacy down in South Florida is stone crabs. So come to Florida, we'll go out for stone crabs.
Stone.
Love it.
Where are we going if we're gonna go to Shoreview?
Shoreview. Oh my God, I haven't lived there in like almost 30 years.
We're gonna go downtown where I live, and
Well, at this point, I'm just curious because it's somewhere we could actually go visit.
that's true.
Yeah, I don't even know. I don't have any family
Popeyes.
left in the Twin Cities. I haven't been in many, many years.
Well, if you're ever out in this area, let us know. Like I said, we're not.
I will.
Yeah, it'd be a great time.
We'll go to
grab some food.
Popeyes.
Yeah, grab
There
some
you go.
dinner.
Better
But
yet,
if
when
we're
you
ever
guys
in
want to
Florida,
escape the Minnesota winter and come to Florida, look me up.
Yeah.
We'll go play some golf.
whereabouts in Florida?
I live in Fort Lauderdale.
Fort Lauderdale. Okay,
Oh, I've
perfect.
been there.
That's awesome.
That's where the Twins play. No, that's Fort
No,
Myers.
No,
that's
they're
Fort
in Fort
Myers,
Myers.
I have not been to Fort Lauderdale. I take that back.
Oh,
It's
it's
about a 2-hour drive.
It's been an awesome conversation. Great podcast, and we'd love to have you on again down the road, maybe sometime in early
I'd love to.
2024. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
You too.